to Career Choices, the show where you will learn about different professions so you can make informed decisions about your career choices. I'm your host, Yan Chen. When you plan out your career path, most of us probably think, I will go to college, get a degree, and then find a job. I may even change my job a few times, then maybe I'll just retire. Well, sometimes in real life, things don't happen in such a straightforward way. Today's guest, Mr. Steve LaVie, is a recognized expert in health physics, radiation protection, nuclear emergency preparedness and response within the international nuclear safety community. His life story is like an adventure novel. It took a few turns before he got where he is now. Today, Mr. LaVie will take us through his life and career journey. He will also share a recent surprise with us later in the program. Mr. LaVie, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So I understand that you actually have had study education in college, but you did not get into education. Well, actually, why did you decide you want to study education?
Well, when I finished up with high school, I was a student at Boston Public Schools, and I was in this monstrous high school of 2,000 students. They had a program where recent graduates could come back as teacher aides the following year. You could do it for 1 year. And I did that, and the teacher I had kept pushing me toward taking up teaching. And there was one day he called in sick, and told the principal didn't have to get a substitute, that I would take his classes. And
You were forced into doing that, huh?
forced into doing it, but I started to get the feel that, gee, maybe this is something I could do. And it was about that time I decided that maybe I was going to stop going to college for electronics and pursue education instead. And so that's how I got into education.
That's quite interesting. So you were forced into that, and then you enjoyed that, but I understand that you did not actually pursue a career in education. What happened?
Okay, my senior year at the university, I did my student teaching. And the people who were supervising me as a student teacher apparently felt I was doing a nice job, and they had an opening in their staff, this is the high school, for a teacher for the second semester. And they offered it to me. And I thought this was a wonderful idea to get some experience while at the same time finishing up some of my coursework. The unfortunate thing was, however, is this was the height of the Vietnam War period, and I got a letter from the Selective Service asking me to come for medical exams for entrance into the military. And the day I went to the entrance station, at lunchtime they let us loose on our own, and I ran across the street to the Navy building and enlisted in the Navy. So once I enlisted in the Navy, I was able to finish the school year as a teacher, but went into the Navy shortly thereafter.
Oh my. So you actually do like to take your life in your own head.
Yeah.
You don't want to be drafted. You just
Right.
get enlisted in Navy.
I had no desire to go to Vietnam, really, but I served in the Navy during that period of the Vietnam era, although I was usually up in the North Atlantic in a submarine.
What did you do while you were in Navy?
I was in the nuclear power propulsion program of the Navy's. I was trained to maintain and operate the reactor plant along with other people. I qualified all the way up to engineering watch supervisor, which was responsible for the other watch standards. The Navy put us through 2 years of school before we went to our first boat, so and it was a college-level course. There was no multiple choice questions. It was all essays and mathematical calculations. And fortunately, I prevailed and managed to get through all of it, and did a career in the Navy. I served 7 years in the submarine.
The course that you went through, is that in any specific area, or it's like general kind of?
Well, they they had a complete program, and like I say, it was kind of college level. We took courses such as reactive physics, which you can't get too many places. But they also knew they were training us to operate the boat. So some of us got a lot more training in electrical motors and some of that stuff. Others got more training in electronics. I went the machinery route, learning how to operate and maintain the mechanical equipment. But I also went into what the Navy called engineering laboratory technicians, which were the people on the boat who did the radiation monitoring and the chemistry analysis on the reactor plant. And I did that plus operate the plant. It was a very interesting affair.
So how long were you in Navy?
I did 7 years in the Navy.
Oh, wow.
We were required to give a little extra time because all the time we had spent in school.
All right. So after Navy, or maybe after the war, what did you do? Do you feel like some of the stuff you learned in Navy actually helped you with your profession afterwards?
Yes, very much so. At the time, the nuclear power plants were hiring people out of the Navy left and right because they knew the Navy people had all been trained. And that would make it easier for the plant to train those candidates on the differences between the reactor plant and the submarine and the reactor plant on a land-based power plant. But yes, a lot of the stuff I learned in the Navy was immediately applicable when I went to work at the utility.
Oh, wow. So after Navy, how did you find your first job? So I think that Navy experience probably helped a lot, like you said.
Yes. When I came out of the Navy, I had an unrealistic view of where I wanted to be. I wanted to stay in the New England area, and the power plants in the New England area were already pretty fully staffed. And I finally ended up going to a headhunter, and he found me my first job down in Rockville, Maryland. This is back in 1976 to 81. At a company that provided services to the nuclear power plants. I was a consultant, and that's how I got my first leg in the door of the commercial industry. That job took me to the 3 Mile Island plant, and from there on to another utility.
Wow. So I understand that, of course, most people probably heard about 3 Mile Island, the accident there. And I understand that you actually was one of the responders helping with, responding to the accident. Right. Tell us about that, your experience, and I guess what happened.
Well, it was a very interesting period. I had only been out of the Navy 2 years, so within NUS I was a junior employee. But when the accident happened, we all got deployed to the island to try to help out in whatever area we could. But because there was so much to do, there was no division between senior and junior anymore. And so it was a great advancement on my professional career because I actually had to start making my own decisions and moving my own path. I did not have to work in the radiation areas, although I entered them a couple of times. Most of the time they had me doing what we called radiation worker training. The power plants always train their employees with the risk of radiations, how to avoid it, how to wear the protective equipment. It's typically a one-day course. However, with the accident, everything in the plant had changed. They now had areas in the plant which would be lethal to enter. So the training had to be enhanced in order to make the training more applicable to what the people would actually face at that time. I stayed at the island until about the July 4th weekend, teaching rad worker training. And even then, I continued to do work for the island back from here, Rockville.
So you worked for on several different utilities. Tell us about the experience, or what line of work do you work over there?
One of the assignments I was given at NUS was to the Beaver Valley Power Station in Western Pennsylvania. And I went out there, worked out there at their facility rather than being in Rockville. And I guess I was about 3 months into this, and I started wondering why there was a different name in my paycheck. You know, I'm working at this utility, I'm working with all their plant employees, I'm writing everything up on their paperwork, not my employer's paperwork. And the vice president there finally came to me and asked me if I would be interested in jumping the ship and working for the utility. And I said I'd be most certainly interested in working for the utility. The consulting business involved an awful lot of travel that you couldn't control. Mm-hmm. You know, they would send you here this week, send you there, someone else the next week. So this was a chance to get out of the travel and kind of settle down. Now at the plant, I was put into radiological engineering. I did work such as designing radiation shields, doing accident analyses, and arranging set points and radiation monitors. It was extremely interesting work, and that work gave me the opportunity to cross paths with the NRC, because I was involved with licensing. And my employer put me on several industry task force, and that was another opportunity to get recognized by the people in the NRC. We would go to a meeting and they would recognize the people they kept hearing from. And I stayed there at Beaver Valley 15 years. I went through partial operator training. We went through the same training the operators would, but we did not license. The operators of nuclear power plants are licensed by the NRC.
Right.
We took the entire course to make us understand what it was to operate the plant, so when we made decisions about where to put radiation barriers and things of this nature, it wouldn't impede the operators. So that was 15 years there. It was 15 years, in my mind, very well spent.
Well, that's cool. Let's take a break now, and when we come
Okay.
back, let's talk about your work at NRC.
Will do.
We'll be right back with more discussion with Mr. LaVie later.
If you could say with me, imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read.
So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child. So let's join hands, book people unite.
Unearth hidden passion.
Come on, we'll have a good time. One book can be the first thing helps to change a life. People unite.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education.
Right up here.
So every year, I take promising high schoolers on a college tour
Lights there, darks there.
to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
You can be a reader, tutor, or mentor too. Take the pledge at liveunited.org/volunteer.
Do you wear this?
Nice. No. Oops. Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy.
Works every time.
Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Welcome back to Career Choices. In today's program, we have invited Mr. Steve LaVie to talk about his career. So we talked about what you did in Navy, in the utility, and I understand that you now work at NRC Nuclear Regulatory Commission as an emergency preparedness specialist. So what is an emergency preparedness specialist? What do you do?
Okay, our job here at the NRC headquarters is to oversee what the licensees are doing to make sure they're performing as we expect them to perform. Our regional offices do the inspections, personnel from their offices, but we establish the program bases. We write the guidance documents. We generate the policy. And my own particular area is primarily, like I said, working with the inspectors. However, I have colleagues that review emergency plans for new facilities. We have had applications for new facilities, and they'll review the plan to make sure it meets our requirements. We have other people who are working on guidance for the power plants that are going to be decommissioning. We've got 7 plants right now in the pathway to stop operating and decommission. So we generate policy, we do outreach with our colleagues at the Federal Emergency Management Agency who look at the emergency planning off-site. We look at the emergency planning on-site, and together we make a decision whether or not we have reasonable assurance that the public can be protected.
Mm-hmm. Any exciting moment while working at NRC?
Well, there were actually a couple of real exciting is an interesting word.
Memorable.
Memorable, maybe that's good. I was called in on the night of September 11th, 2001, to take a shift in our emergency operations facility. And we spent most of the night answering correspondence from the White House and some other federal agencies, as with watching all of the TV coverage. That was a very interesting situation. It got me my security clearance, because when you're talking to the White House, you have to have a security clearance.
Right.
But the next one was unfortunately another accident, and that was the event at Fukushima in Japan. Mm-hmm. We had our operations center activated for, I think it was almost 2.5 weeks. We worked shifts around the clock, analyzing what they were doing, trying to learn what the lessons might be for our plants. Mm-hmm. You know, we didn't operate the Japanese plants, we didn't license the Japanese plants, but whatever lessons we could learn from that could be applied to our licensees was important to identify. So it was an exciting period. It got a little long on time because you're working 12-hour shifts every day.
Oh, yes.
But it was worth it, and a lot of good experiences. Had a lot of exchanges with representatives from naval reactors there at the operations center.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of sad that we had to respond to this type of event and situation.
But I think it ought to give people satisfaction that the agency is prepared to respond to this event. In the United States, our licensees are the first responders. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are going to talk to the state and local governments early. They notify them and make any recommendations they have before they call us. So we're not the first responders. Our licensee is. Now, once the licensee's doing it, we watch what the licensee's doing, and if he's doing something we don't think is appropriate or inadequate, then we will have conversations with the licensee, and if push comes to shove, the agency can issue orders. Mm-hmm. We don't do it, we rather get them to understand why we want them to do something different.
Right. Now we are really going to get into something very exciting. So early on, I said that your life story and career journey is like an adventure novel. And you talked to us about your school and how you get almost drafted into military. And as a matter of fact, I understand that you were just a few credits away before getting the degree when that happened. And finally, after 48 years, you finally received a very well-deserved degree. Tell us about this.
Yeah, it was really a surprise. When I was in the Navy, I tried to work with the college to take correspondence courses, and they weren't really amenable to that. When I got out of the Navy, I contacted again, what do I need to do to finish my degree work? The reason I was 6 credits short was, as we pointed out, is that I ended up having to go into the Navy to avoid going to Vietnam. And after I tried, I think there was 3 or 4 attempts to see how I could get credit, and the college wasn't amenable at that time. So I had pretty much given up on it. My supervisors tell me I'm doing great work at the NRC. I don't have a degree, but I had the experience to make up the difference. But one of my colleagues found out that I didn't have a degree and started questioning me. Why don't you have a degree? And I explained it all. And I figured that was it. we were done with this. Well, this young lady went off and called the college and asked them, what is it we could do to get him his degree? And the college said, well, we have an ability to give credit for life experiences, but your agency is going to need to put together a long letter explaining what all those experiences were, which the agency did. I knew nothing about this. On April 25th, I was going to a staff meeting. And the staff meeting turned into this major surprise. And it was like a deer in the headlights because I had no idea why all these people were standing up applauding me. And I really kind of went over and sat down to get out of the way to let me think about this. What's going on? And I sat down next to my sister, didn't even realize she was there. She had been invited to come down. So that really started the puzzle. But after a couple of speakers, it became aware. There was a gentleman from the Fitchburg State University who was there to confer my degree. And he read all the legal statements. And on behalf of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and all this, he says, we're granting you a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial Arts. And it was a total surprise. But before the quote-unquote staff meeting was over, he had asked me to go to the campus for the commencement, which I did last weekend. And at the commencement, they issued me a Distinguished Alumni Award.
Oh, that's very nice.
So it's been kind of a really surprise getting invited to talk with you again. And I have another appointment to talk to someone next week, a radio broadcast. So it's been a really surprise.
Well, I think your life story is worth telling people and how you get to where you are now. So I want to ask you, do you have any lessons or advice to offer to people with your life experience and for people who probably kind of bump into bricks, feel like this is way too hard or whatever?
Well, I think one of the things is I think you can't be afraid of trying something new. I don't want to say that you should just run and jump and do things haphazardly. But every move I made during my career, when I decided to leave the Navy, I was thinking, where's the next paycheck coming from? Can I really do it in the industry? But every time I made one of these decisions, it turned out to be right. So I guess the advice would be, don't be afraid of making a shift in your path.
That's very good, because I think sometimes you do need to make changes in order to get to the next place. So what's the most satisfying thing about your whole career or life?
There's 2 things. One is mentoring our junior employees. I love to mentor people. My door is always open. Anybody who wants to come in and sit down, I will be happy to mentor. And just strangely recently, Miss USA, Kyra McCullough, worked in our branch, and I had mentored her several times. The other thing, which I think is far more significant to me, is that all of this work I do at the NRC is in the interest of public health and safety. And I really believe that's important. And it's very meaningful. I get an awful lot of satisfaction out of knowing that, yes, our plants are operating well and the public is safe. Service to the country, I guess, is another way of putting it.
Wow, I think that's a great ending. We really thank you for being here with us to share your career and also your lifetime story. That's very inspirational.
Well, thank you, Yana. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you. This concludes our program, and thanks to our guest, Mr. Steve LaVie, and thank you all for joining us. If you have any feedback or comments, or if you would like to share your lifetime experience or career, please email us at qip.career.choices@gmail.com. We will see you next time on Career Choices.